Hello, dear friend. It is so wonderful to have you here at Books and More, a quiet sanctuary for those who seek to understand the deeper layers of life. Our mission is to carefully gather the most profound insights from timeless masterpieces, offering you a path to save time while still embracing the original wisdom and core values that make these books so precious. In the constant noise of our daily lives, there are moments when the heart grows quiet and the mind begins to wander, searching for a meaning that feels authentic and true. The work we are exploring today, the philosophy book, is a vast and colorful tapestry of human thought, stretching from the ancient dawn of civilization to the complex questions of our modern day. It is an invitation to look at the world through a clearer lens, turning the daunting into the accessible. As we settle in, I invite you to reflect on a few things. What truly defines the essence of who you are? Is the reality we see around us the whole truth, or is there a hidden structure waiting to be discovered? And in the face of uncertainty, how do we find the courage to define our own purpose? Philosophy is more than just an academic pursuit. It is a gentle companion for the soul. It reminds us that our deepest questions are the same ones that have echoed through the centuries, connecting us to every human being who has ever dared to dream or doubt. You are part of a grand conversation, and in these shared ideas, I hope you find a sense of clarity and healing. May your journey today be filled with light and new perspectives. Please, come with me as we begin our discovery of these great ideas together. Wonder as the beginning of thought. I have always believed that philosophy is not just the preserve of brilliant but eccentric thinkers, as it is popularly supposed to be. To me, it is what everyone does when they are not busy dealing with their everyday business and get a chance simply to wonder what life and the universe are all about. We human beings are naturally inquisitive creatures. We are equipped with a powerful intellectual capability that allows us to reason as well as just wonder. Whenever we use our reason to explore these deep questions, we are thinking philosophically. For me, philosophy is not so much about coming up with the final answers to fundamental questions as it is about the process of trying to find those answers. It involves using reasoning rather than accepting without question conventional views or traditional authority. The very first philosophers in ancient Greece and China were thinkers who were not satisfied with the established explanations provided by religion and custom. They sought answers which had rational justifications. They set up schools to teach the way they had come to their conclusions, encouraging their students to disagree and criticize ideas as a means of refining them. A popular misconception is that of the solitary philosopher arriving at his conclusions in isolation, but I have observed that new ideas almost always emerge through discussion and the analysis of other people's ideas. The archetypical philosopher in this respect was Socrates. He left no writings and prided himself on being the wisest of men because he knew he did not know anything. His legacy lay in the tradition he established of debate and discussion, and the writings of his pupil, Plato, are almost invariably in the form of dialogues. This tradition of disagreement has continued through the ages. Plato and his pupil, Aristotle, for example, held diametrically opposed views on fundamental questions, and their different approaches have divided opinions among philosophers ever since. I see these fundamental questions falling into several main branches. Metaphysics considers the nature of human existence and what it means to be a conscious being. It asks if things exist independently of our perception. Epistemology is the study of the nature and limits of knowledge, asking how we acquire what we know and whether it is innate or learned from experience. To ensure our ideas have validity, we use logic, which is a technique of reasoning that has intimate connections with science and mathematics. Beyond these, we explore ethics, which examines what it means to lead a good life, and political philosophy, which deals with how a society should be organized and governed. While these branches often overlap, they all share a common goal: to help us understand our world better. The ideas I have collected here are important because they make us re-examine things we take for granted. They spread their influence beyond philosophy into scientific, political, and artistic movements. Ultimately, I believe that philosophy is a way of thinking that provides the thrill of exploration and the joy of discovery. It gives us the satisfaction of arriving at beliefs through our own individual reasoning, rather than having them handed down or forced upon us by others. It is a journey that starts with simple wonder and ends with a more profound understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe. The ancient world and the birth of reason. For as long as humans have existed, we have asked questions about the world and our place within it. In the earliest societies, these answers were found in religion and the actions of gods. But I want to take you back to a time about 2,500 years ago when a new way of thinking began to emerge. This was the birth of philosophy, a shift from myth to reason that started in the Greek settlement of Miletus with a man named Thales. He looked at the world and sought a natural explanation for everything, concluding that the fundamental material of the universe must be water. While his answer might seem simple today, his real importance lies in the fact that he was the first to seek rational answers rather than ascribing events to the whims of gods. As I look across the globe during this same era, I see that this spirit of inquiry was not limited to Greece. In China, the ruling dynasties were disintegrating, leading to a period of internal warfare and the emergence of the 100 schools of thought. Laozi explored the concept of the Tao, or the way, suggesting that true wisdom lies in acting in accordance with nature through non-action. He believed that by acting intuitively and without ambition, we could find a harmonious balance. Meanwhile, Confucius was focusing on the practicalities of morality and just rule. He turned to the past for inspiration, emphasizing faithfulness, sincerity, and respect for tradition. For Confucius, the virtuous man is not just someone at the top of a hierarchy, but someone who understands his place and acts with benevolence. During this same incredible century in India, Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha, was using philosophical reasoning to challenge traditional Vedic beliefs. He turned his gaze inward and realized that suffering is an inherent part of existence, caused by our attachments and cravings. By applying reason to his own experiences, he concluded that the ego is an illusion and that we are all part of a transitory, impermanent process. He laid out the Eightfold Path as a practical guide to overcome the ego and achieve the ultimate freedom of nirvana. Returning to the Greek world, I find a fascinating debate unfolding about the nature of reality. Pythagoras moved beyond Thales' search for matter and argued that numbers are the ruler of forms and ideas. He believed that the entire cosmos is governed by mathematical rules and ratios, a view that gave mathematics a mystical significance. However, other thinkers like Heraclitus argued that everything is in a state of constant flux. He famously said that you can never step into the same river twice because fresh waters are always replacing the ones you initially touched. This idea of constant change was rejected by Parmenides, who used logic to argue that whatever is real must be eternal and unchanging. For Parmenides, our senses deceive us by showing us change, and we should only rely on reason, which tells us that all is one. This conflict between reason and the senses led Democritus and Leucippus to propose that the world is composed of tiny, indivisible atoms moving in a void. offering the first mechanistic view of the universe. The focus of philosophy then shifted from the cosmos to human life itself through the figure of Socrates. Although he left no writings, he changed everything by persistently asking questions that brought to light the false assumptions of his contemporaries. I see Socrates as the founder of the dialectical method, a way of examining what we think through dialogue. He chose death rather than a life of ignorance, famously claiming that the unexamined life is not worth living. His work was carried forward by his pupil, Plato, who proposed that the world of our senses is merely a shadow of a higher, perfect reality of ideas or forms. In his allegory of the cave, Plato argued that true knowledge can only be reached through reason, not through the deceptive shadows of the material world. Plato's greatest student, Aristotle, eventually took a different path. While Plato looked toward a higher dimension, Aristotle believed that truth resides right here in the world around us. He was a methodical scientist who relied on observation to build a complete picture of plants, animals, and human society. He categorized the strands of knowledge we use today and formulated the syllogism, the first formal system of logic. For Aristotle, a good life meant fulfilling our human purpose through the pursuit of virtue and wisdom. As the classical Greek period came to an end, new schools of thought emerged to help people navigate the challenges of the Roman Empire. Epicurus taught that the goal of life is tranquility and the absence of pain, suggesting that we have nothing to fear from death because our consciousness ceases to exist at the moment we die. Diogenes the Cynic took the rejection of material comfort to the extreme, living in an abandoned tub to show that the happiest person is the one who is content with the least. Finally, Zeno of Citium formulated Stoicism, teaching that we should live in agreement with nature and exercise our free will to remain indifferent to things beyond our control. All of these ancient thinkers, from the shores of Greece to the plains of India and China, laid the bedrock of human thought, teaching us that by using our minds, we can begin to understand the complex world we inhabit. Faith and reason in the medieval world. As I look back at the long millennium between the fall of Rome and the dawn of the Renaissance, I see a world where philosophy took a very specific and challenging turn. For about 1,000 years, the bold, open-ended inquiry of the ancient Greeks sat uncomfortably with the rise of powerful religious doctrines. In Western Europe, the Church became the dominant authority, and for a long time, the Greek idea of philosophy as an independent rational examination was marginalized. However, this period was far from a total intellectual slumber. Instead, it became an era where the greatest minds wrestled with a single, monumental task: the integration of reason with faith. I see this journey beginning with St. Augustine of Hippo, who found himself deeply troubled by the problem of evil. If God is entirely good and all-powerful, why is there suffering in the world? I find his solution quite profound. He argued that evil is not a positive force or a thing created by God, but rather a lack or a deficiency of goodness, much like blindness is the absence of sight. To Augustine, God provided humans with free will so they could choose to be good, and it is our own moral choices that allow for the possibility of sin. He believed that even the discords of life contribute to an overall beauty that we, with our limited perspective, cannot always see. The Roman philosopher Boethius continued this effort to understand the divine while facing his own execution in a prison cell. He struggled with how human beings could truly have free will if an all-knowing God already sees everything we will do in the future. I believe his conclusion was a masterstroke of logic for his time. He proposed that God lives in an eternal present, outside the flow of time. From that vantage point, God sees our past, present, and future all at once, just as we see the present. Crucially, he argued that God's knowledge of what we will do does not force us to do it, just as our knowledge of someone sitting down does not interfere with their freedom to stand up. While much of Europe was in the midst of the Dark Ages, I am always struck by how philosophy flourished in the Arabic world. Thinkers like Avicenna or Ibn Sina became the bridge that eventually brought Greek wisdom back to the West. Avicenna was a true dualist who believed the soul and the body were distinct substances. To prove this, he devised a brilliant thought experiment called the flying man. He asked us to imagine someone coming into existence suspended in the air, blindfolded and unable to touch anything. Even without any sensory information from a body, that person would still be sure of their own existence, which for Avicenna proved that the self or soul is independent of the physical form. Following him, Averroes sought to reconcile philosophy and religion by suggesting they were two different ways of reaching the same truth. He believed that while the uneducated should follow the literal word of the scriptures, the educated elite had a religious duty to use philosophical reasoning to interpret the deeper meanings within the text. In the Jewish tradition, Moses Maimonides shared this concern about the limits of human language. He warned against the danger of thinking about God as a physical being with human emotions. I find his negative theology especially interesting because he claimed we cannot rightly say what God is, we can only say what God is not. To Maimonides, God is so far beyond our apprehension that the only way to speak of him is through the things he has done, rather than describing his essence. This era also produced the mystical vision of Rumi, who saw the universe as an endless flow where everything that is lost eventually returns in another form. He believed that understanding the divine came not from cold logic, but from the heart, enhanced by music and love. The peak of this medieval intellectual struggle was undoubtedly reached by Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century. He performed the incredible feat of synthesizing the works of Aristotle with Christian doctrine. I am particularly impressed by his defense of reason. Aquinas argued that because both human reason and religious teaching come from the same source, God, they could never truly contradict each other. He famously took on the question of whether the universe has always existed. While the Bible says the universe had a beginning, Aquinas argued that it was not a logical necessity. He believed God could have just as easily created a universe that existed eternally. He used the analogy of a foot making a footprint in the sand. If the foot had been there forever, the footprint would have been there forever too, yet the foot would still be the cause of the footprint. For Aquinas, the laws of cause and effect lead us to a prime mover, which is God, and he insisted that humans possess an innate power of intellect that allows us to move beyond simple sense impressions to understand the reality behind them. As the medieval world began to shift toward the Renaissance, I see a final flourish of these themes in the work of Nicholas von Kues and Desiderius Erasmus. Von Kues stressed that God is unlike anything the mind can grasp, referring to him as the not other, to show that all things exist through him. Finally, Erasmus brought a humanistic touch to the era by satirizing the complex intellectualizing of the Church. He famously suggested that to know nothing is the happiest life, advocating for a return to simple, heartfelt beliefs and a personal relationship with the divine. These medieval thinkers, though often dismissed by later eras, were the ones who established the rigorous processes of debate and logic that formed the foundation for all modern science and philosophy. They showed us that the search for truth is a journey that requires both the courage of the mind and the conviction of the heart.
The rebirth of reason and the machine of the mind. As I look at the transition from the medieval world to the period we call the Renaissance, I see a profound shift in the very center of human concern. the focus of thinking moved away from the heavens and the intricate justifications of faith toward a new and radical interest in the human being and the observable world. This era, stretching from 1500 to 1750, marks the bridge to our modern age, and it began with a cold, hard look at the reality of power. I find the work of Niccolò Machiavelli to be the first definitive step in this journey. Born in the upheaval of Florence, he stripped away the religious veneer of leadership and argued that the success of a state is paramount. He famously suggested that a ruler must be prepared to act against morality to secure the safety of the nation, and that the goals of a prince justify the means used to achieve them. For Machiavelli, the ideal leader was a combination of the lion's strength and the fox's cunning, marking the birth of political realism. While Machiavelli was looking at the mechanics of the state, Michel de Montaigne was turning his gaze inward to the mechanics of the self. In his quiet study, he realized that constant striving for fame is a barrier to peace of mind. He believed that fame and tranquility could never be bedfellows and encouraged us to cultivate a life of detachment from the opinion of the mob. To Montaigne, the greatest task was to know oneself and to maintain a sense of inner freedom even when surrounded by the chaos of society. This interest in the individual soon merged with a growing fascination with the natural world, led by Francis Bacon. I consider Bacon a pioneer because he insisted that knowledge is power and that it must be built upon the solid ground of experience rather than the shifting sands of dogma. He identified the psychological barriers he called the idols of the mind, which distort our perception, and proposed a scientific method based on observation and the careful testing of theories. As science began to explain the universe in physical terms, Thomas Hobbes took this logic to its most controversial conclusion. He argued that the entire universe is corporeal, meaning it is made only of matter. To Hobbes, a human being is essentially a biological machine, and our life is but a motion of limbs. He saw the heart as a spring and the nerves as strings, an idea that reflected the mechanistic spirit of the age. However, this view of humanity as a set of moving parts was challenged by the most influential thinker of the era, René Descartes. I see Descartes as the true father of modern philosophy because he sought a foundation for knowledge that was absolutely beyond doubt. He used a method of extreme skepticism, setting aside everything he could possibly question, including the existence of his own body. In this whirlpool of doubt, he discovered one truth he could not deny: the fact that he was thinking proved he existed. His conclusion, "I think, therefore I am," became the starting point for rationalism, the belief that the most important truths are reached through reason alone. Descartes also proposed a sharp division between the mind and the body, a dualism that would haunt philosophy for centuries. While he was confident in the power of the mind, Blaise Pascal offered a necessary reminder of its limits. Pascal observed that our imagination is a powerful force that often overrides our reason, leading us into error. He pointed out that we are often fooled by appearances, like the impressive robes of a judge, and argued that our belief in God is ultimately a matter of the heart and a rational bet on the infinite gain of eternal happiness. The later part of this era was dominated by a grand debate about where our knowledge actually comes from. On one side stood Benedictus Spinoza, who pushed rationalism to its peak. He argued that there is only one substance in the universe, which he called God, or nature. In Spinoza's view, everything that exists is a part of this single substance, and our minds and bodies are simply different ways of perceiving the same reality. He believed that when we understand our place in this vast system, we achieve a state of blessedness. On the other side was John Locke, who laid the foundations for British empiricism. I find find Locke's rejection of innate ideas to be a crucial turning point. He argued that we are born with a mind like a blank sheet of paper, a tabula rasa, and that all our knowledge is written there by our experience of the world through our senses. This era of intense intellectual exploration was further enriched by Gottfried Leibniz and George Berkeley. Leibniz, a brilliant mathematician, suggested that the universe is made of simple substances called monads, each containing a complete representation of the entire cosmos. He made a vital distinction between truths of reasoning, which are logically necessary, and truths of fact, which we learn through experience. Finally, George Berkeley took the empiricist idea to an extreme that still shocks many today. He argued that material substance does not exist at all, and that to be is to be perceived. In Berkeley's world, things only exist because they are ideas in a mind, and the entire world remains stable only because it is always being perceived by the mind of God. These thinkers together created a revolution in how we see ourselves. They moved from a world explained by myth and mystery to one where the human mind, whether through pure reason or the evidence of the senses, began to claim its place as the sovereign judge of reality. They taught us that the world is a place of laws that can be understood, and that the greatest journey we can take is the exploration of the mind that seeks to understand them. The Age of Revolution. I see the period between 1750 and 1900 as a time when the world truly transformed. It was an era of unprecedented prosperity, but also of deep-seated unrest. I believe that for us to understand this period, we have to look at how philosophers moved from asking questions about the stars to asking questions about the streets and the human heart. It began with Voltaire, who lived through the Enlightenment and famously remarked that doubt is not a pleasant condition, but certainty is absurd. He reminded us that nearly every theory in history has eventually been revised, so we must always be ready to challenge authority. This skepticism was deepened by David Hume, who delivered a massive blow to our confidence in pure reason. He pointed out that we have no logical proof that the sun will rise tomorrow just because it did today. To Hume, we are guided by custom and habit rather than logical necessity. In the midst of these intellectual shifts, I am drawn to the passionate voice of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He argued that man was born free, but is now everywhere in chains. He believed that our natural state was one of goodness, and that civilization, particularly the invention of private property, had corrupted us. His solution was a social contract based on the general will, an idea that helped ignite the French Revolution. In contrast, Adam Smith looked at our social ties through the lens of the marketplace. He observed that man is uniquely an animal that makes bargains. Smith believed that when individuals are free to pursue their own self-interest, an invisible hand guides society toward wealth and order. The most significant turning point in this entire era, in my view, was the work of Immanuel Kant. He wanted to prove that there really is a world out there, while also recognizing that our minds shape how we see it. Kant proposed that space and time are not things we learn from experience, but are the very tools our minds use to organize our sensations. He famously described two worlds, the phenomenal world of our experiences and the noumenal world of things in themselves, which remain forever unknowable. This shifted the focus of philosophy away from the world itself and onto the limits of human understanding. As society moved forward, I see a growing tension between tradition and radical change. Edmund Burke argued that society is a contract between the living, the dead, and the unborn, and that we must respect the wisdom of our ancestors. On the other hand, Jeremy Bentham introduced the principle of utility, suggesting that the only measure of a good law is whether it brings the greatest happiness to the greatest number of people. This spirit of reform was carried further by Mary Wollstonecraft, who declared that the mind has no gender. She argued that women only appeared weaker because they were denied the same education as men, sowing the seeds for future feminist movements. History itself became a central theme for Georg Hegel. He saw reality not as a collection of objects, but as a historical process where the world spirit gradually comes to know itself through conflict and resolution. His student, Karl Marx, took this idea of historical progress and turned it upside down. Marx believed that the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. He wanted to change the world, not just interpret it, and he predicted that the workers would eventually rise up to create a classless society.
Toward the end of this era, the focus turned toward the individual's inner experience. Arthur Schopenhauer suggested that we are all at the mercy of a blind, universal will, and our only escape is through art and compassion. Soren Kierkegaard explored the terrifying weight of our own choices, calling anxiety the dizziness of freedom. He believed that we must define ourselves through our actions. This sense of personal responsibility was echoed by Henry David Thoreau, who argued that an individual should never resign his conscience to a legislator. Finally, in America, Charles Sanders Peirce and William James developed pragmatism. They believed that truth is not a stagnant property, but a process. James invited us to act as if what we do makes a difference, because he believed that the truth of an idea is found in its practical consequences. This age of revolution taught us that we are the architects of our own world, and that our ideas have the power to break chains and build new futures. The modern world and the crisis of meaning. As I look at the dawn of the 20th century, I see a world reaching a dramatic turning point. Science and the theory of evolution had thrown the old certainties into doubt, and moral philosophy began to shift away from religious foundations toward an entirely human-centered perspective. I feel this journey really begins with Friedrich Nietzsche, who famously proclaimed that God is dead. For me, this wasn't just a statement about religion, but a warning that the old systems of value had collapsed. Nietzsche urged us to realize that man is something to be surpassed. He challenged us to become the creators of our own values, moving beyond the limiting ideas of the past to become what he called the Superman, a being who affirms life right here on Earth rather than in some imagined world beyond. This period also saw a fascination with the tools we use to understand our reality, especially language and logic. Ferdinand de Saussure showed us that every message is made of signs and that our world is structured by these linguistic systems. I find the work of Ludwig Wittgenstein particularly striking in this regard. He argued that the limits of my language are the limits of my world. He believed that many philosophical problems were simply the result of getting muddled by language, and that we must learn to be silent about the things we cannot meaningfully express. This drive for precision led Rudolf Carnap to argue that logic is the last scientific ingredient of philosophy, aiming to clear away the fog of metaphysical speculation once and for all. In Europe, I watched a movement called phenomenology take shape. Edmund Husserl wanted to find absolutely certain foundations for knowledge by returning to experience itself. He taught us that experience is subject to biases, and we must bracket those out to see things as they truly are. His student, Martin Heidegger, took this a step further by focusing on the nature of being. Heidegger argued that we are ourselves the entities to be analyzed. He described us as being thrown into a world we did not choose, facing the ultimate horizon of our own death. I believe his distinction between authentic and inauthentic existence remains one of the most important ideas of the century. It reminds us that we often lose ourselves in daily tasks, forgetting that we are free to define our own lives. While some philosophers turned inward, others looked at how we function in society.
John Dewey, the great American pragmatist, believed that we only truly think when we are confronted with problems. He saw philosophy as a tool for practical problem solving rather than a search for an abstract truth. At the same time, William Du Bois urged us to believe in life and progress even while navigating the difficult reality of the color line. He reminded us that the only real death for the human spirit is to lose belief in the possibility of a fuller life. The shadow of the two world wars deeply colored the thinking of this era. Hannah Arendt, witnessing the trial of a Nazi official, introduced the chilling concept of the banality of evil. She realized that horrific acts could be committed not just by monsters, but by ordinary people who simply stop thinking and unthinkingly follow orders. This ethical crisis made the question of freedom more urgent than ever. Jean-Paul Sartre gave us the definitive modern credo: existence precedes essence. He argued that we appear on the scene first and then define ourselves through our choices. Because there is no God to give us a purpose, we are condemned to be free. I see this same spirit of freedom in the work of Simone de Beauvoir, who famously stated that one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. She bared the way society defines women as a secondary other and called for a truly authentic existence for all. Albert Camus added another layer to this by exploring the absurd. He used the myth of Sisyphus, who is condemned to roll a rock up a hill forever, to represent the human condition. Camus believed that even though life has no inherent meaning, we can live it all the better by embracing that meaninglessness and choosing to be happy anyway. Toward the middle of the century, I noticed philosophy becoming even more diverse. Maurice Merleau-Ponty reminded us that our experience is fundamentally embodied, and that we must break with our familiar acceptance of the world to truly see it. Emmanuel Levinas argued that reason itself lives in language and in our face-to-face responsibility for others. Isaiah Berlin helped us understand the difference between positive and negative freedom, warning that our ideals can sometimes turn into chains if we aren't careful. Finally, R. Ness invited us to think like a mountain, recognizing our place within the vast biosphere rather than trying to dominate it. The modern world as I have presented it here is a tapestry of thinkers who, despite the darkness and confusion of their times, never stopped trying to understand what it means to be human in a universe that is both terrifyingly free and endlessly mysterious. Contemporary philosophy and the deconstruction of the world. As I look at the closing decades of the 20th century and the beginning of our own, I see an era defined by a profound shift in how we understand the very fabric of our lives. The world has become a place of accelerating technology and complex communication, and philosophy has responded by turning its gaze toward the structures of power, language, and culture that shape who we are. My journey through this contemporary landscape begins with the realization that we are deeply entwined with the tools we use to speak. Roland Barthes gave us a beautiful image when he described language as a skin. He suggested that when we speak or write about love, our words aren't just cold pieces of information, they rub against the secret object of our desire like physical contact. This sense that our social environment is part of our very nature is something I see mirrored in the work of Mary Midgley. She challenged the idea that culture is something artificial or non-natural. To Midgley, we spin culture as naturally as spiders spin webs. Our need for it is both innate and natural, and we simply cannot manage without it. Even in the world of science, which we often think of as a steady march toward absolute truth, I found a much more human and revolutionary story. Thomas Kuhn transformed our understanding by showing that normal science eventually reaches a crisis point, leading to a paradigm shift. These shifts aren't just small corrections, they are complete changes in the theoretical framework we use to see the world. Paul Feyerabend took this spirit of challenge even further into what he called epistemological anarchism. He argued that there is no such thing as a single perfect scientific method, and that throughout history, the only rule that has allowed for progress is that anything goes. This growing skepticism toward one single objective truth became the hallmark of postmodern thought. Jean-Francois Lyotard famously described this as incredulity toward meta-narratives, those grand, overarching stories like Marxism or the belief in universal progress that try to explain all of human history. He warned that in our computer age, knowledge is being externalized and turned into a commodity to be bought and sold, potentially allowing large corporations to control the flow of what we know. The question of power and how it defines us led me to the work of Michel Foucault. He made the startling claim that man is an invention of recent date, an idea that arose only at the beginning of the 19th century as an object of study for the natural sciences. Foucault used what he called an archaeology of thinking to unearth the unconscious rules that govern our discourse. He believed that our ideas about madness, sexuality, and human nature are not eternal truths, but are shaped by the historical conditions we find ourselves in. This effort to see through social illusions is also central to Noam Chomsky. I believe his principle of universality is a vital moral guide for our times. He reminds us that if we want to be consistent, we must apply the same standards to ourselves that we apply to others. If we assume our own government is naturally more ethical than others without looking at the evidence, we are choosing to live in a world of comforting illusion. To find a way to live together justly, I turn to the influential work of John Rawls. He proposed that the principles of justice should be chosen behind a veil of ignorance. If we had to design a social contract without knowing our own race, class, or talent, rational self-interest would compel us to choose a world where everyone is treated fairly. This is justice as fairness. At the same time, Jürgen Habermas emphasized that a healthy society depends on the public sphere, a space where individuals can reason together to criticize their own traditions. He warns us that when reasoned dialogue is replaced by corporate control or celebrity gossip, we are transformed from critical, rational agents into mindless consumers. One of the most complex and nuanced approaches to this era is the deconstruction proposed by Jacques Derrida. When he famously wrote that there is nothing outside of the text, he was pointing to the fact that meaning is never self-contained or completely present. It is always deferred and revised by what we say next, and the meaning of any word depends on its relationship to all the words we aren't using. Derrida's work invites us to look for the hidden paradoxes and contradictions in everything we read and think. Richard Rorty took this a step further into pragmatism, arguing that there is nothing deep down inside us except what we have put there ourselves. He believed that truth is simply what our contemporaries let us get away with saying, and that we should focus on social hope and solidarity rather than searching for absolute moral laws. I also felt it was essential to include the voices that have challenged the historical dominance of male-centered thought. Thinkers like Luce Irigaray, Helene Cixous, and Julia Kristeva have explored the deep relationship between language and gender. They argue that women must free themselves from the passive roles handed down by society and create their own ways of speaking and desiring. This struggle for identity is also seen in the work of Frantz Fanon and Edward Said, who bared the damage caused by colonialism and imperialism. They showed how empires not only control land, but also the very souls and self-images of the people they rule. Finally, I look at how our moral circle has continued to expand. Henry Odera Oruka showed us that philosophy is not only a written enterprise, but also lives in the oral traditions of sages around the world. Peter Singer brought our attention back to the physical reality of suffering, arguing that muang tuo are our equals when it comes to the capacity to feel pain. He insists that a truly ethical life must include the interests of animals in our moral equations. Contemporary philosophy, as I have gathered it here, is a vast and sometimes unsettling conversation. It strips away our certainties and forces us to recognize our own biases. But in doing so, it offers us the tools to build a more conscious, fair, and compassionate world. It reminds us that we are the ones who must create meaning in the face of history's many failures. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button so that more people can know about it. Thank you for your support. Wishing you a pleasant evening and happiness with your family. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos. If you like this video, please hit the like and subscribe button so that more people can know about it. Thank you for your support. Wishing you a pleasant evening and happiness with your family. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos.